Good morning, teachers. I've got my coffee in hand and I'm ready to dive into Jamboard today. In this video, we're going to be talking about the basic features available in Jamboard, and then throughout the rest of this series, you're going to get deeper into design with Jamboard and create some of those things that you've seen online where people have really taken Jamboard to another level. So without further ado, get your coffee and let's start jamming. Let's talk about how to get to Jamboard. You can get to Jamboard two different ways, and I'm sure you can probably figure out others. The first is simply going to jamboard.google.com. As soon as you go there, you're going to have the option to create a new Jamboard.
Need another option?
You can go to google.com, click on the app launcher, and then scroll down under the app launcher and locate Jamboard. When you first get there, it's going to take you to your dashboard of all of the Jamboards that you have. And in the bottom corner, you're going to see an orange plus sign. Click that orange plus sign to get started on creating a new board. Now, with any file, you probably want to start with naming the file. It's a good habit to get into, so that way you can easily find things. In order to name your file, all you're going to do is click on Untitled Jam and give it a name. For the purpose of this, we're just going to call this one Practice. Now that we have a name, we're probably going to want to head into our Google Drive so we can put this in the proper folder. Unfortunately, right now, Jamboard doesn't have a way to put your Jamboard in the correct folder from within the app. So you're going to have to do that in Google Drive. On the far right hand, you'll see three dots where you have an option to rename your board, download it as a PDF when you're finished, save frame as image, remove it all together, or make a copy. Hopefully there will be more options to come in the future that will make this look a little bit more like some of the other Google apps. You also have a share button. We're not going to talk about this at length in this video, but in future videos, we are going to address the different ways you can share a Jamboard and how you might think about that with students. Now that we have our file named, we are going to try our hands at using just the tools within Jamboard to create the Jamboard that you see here. Now, this happens to be the Frayer a Friend Edu Protocol, and if you're more interested in that Edu Protocol, which is a great way to get to know your students, whether at the beginning of the year, in the middle, or at any point, head over and check out the training on Edu Protocols. But for now, we're going to start with setting up our template just like so, and we're going to use this to help us better understand all the tools available in Jamboard. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the top and I want to create another frame in Jamboard. Jamboard calls its slides frames. So we're going to click Add Frame, and notice it adds a frame to the right. Clicking the plus sign, wherever you see it, will add a frame right in that location. Now I do have the option to duplicate a frame or delete a frame. So if I already like the way a frame is created, I can duplicate it. But we want to learn how to create the same exact frame from scratch. So the first thing I'm noticing is I notice that I have a black background in my frame. So I'm going to come up to the top and select Set Background. I can see I have different options of backgrounds, and I can even add my own backgrounds. Now, in further videos, we're going to get into how to create your own complex backgrounds to really take Jamboard to the next level. But in this video, because we're sticking with the basics, we're just going to add that black chalkboard background. I'm going to take a look at what I see at the top. The top, I see Frayer a Friend. So we want to add a title at the top that says Frayer a Friend. To do this, I'm going to use the text box feature. I'm going to move my cursor once I have the text box feature turned on to wherever I want the text to appear. I'm still going to be able to move it around if I don't want it here. And I'm going to type Frayer a Friend. Now I'm noticing that I can barely see it because the font is still black. So I can highlight what's in this box by using my cursor, or I can do Control A to select all that's in this box. And I'm going to come up to the A up here and select white. I have the option to make the text automatically bigger, title size, and change how it is aligned. I happen to like it in the center. I'm going to click off the text and I'm going to click back on it for a moment and notice I can drag in and out to make it smaller or larger. I can slide things to the side to put it all in one row. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. That seems kind of big. I have the option to rotate. Yeah, that doesn't seem appropriate here. And then I can edit, duplicate, delete, and I can even play with order. And we're going to do that shortly with some of the other things that we're creating. Now, taking a look at my template further, I notice I have 4 rectangles, and I'm going to get the rectangles underneath the Shapes tool. So selecting the Shape tool, I'm going to click that little over arrow and see that I have 8 different shapes I can work with, and I want the one that's a square. It can also be a rectangle. So I'm going to drag my rectangle about the size that I need. And note that it has currently a black border with a white fill. I want to change it to that green border, and I kind of like that light green fill. I do have options for transparent and 5 other fill colors, keeping in mind the fill colors are going to be lighter than the line colors. It is limited options, but we're going to work with what we have just in Jamboard right now. Now, once I have this the right size, I can either use the shortcut Control-C for copy and then Control-V for victory to paste, or I can come up and select the 3 dots and select duplicate. Once I've duplicated, I'm going to duplicate again, and I'm going to line these up. Now, unfortunately, currently Jamboard doesn't have any align tools, so you kind of have to eyeball things as you're lining them up, doing your best to get them in nice rows. It looks pretty good. If I need to take a closer look, I can use the zoom tool up here to zoom in and see where things are at. Maybe I want to adjust that just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to click the zoom tool to zoom out. Once I have that set, we're going to come back to that top bar and take a look at what we need to do next. Now, I'm noticing that I have a rectangle here with the rounded edges, and it's on top of all of these other rectangles. So I want to get that created in the center. We're going to come back down to that shape tool and find that rounded rectangle. We're going to drag a rounded rectangle in the center here. Now, if my rounded rectangle happens to go all the way behind and I can't write on it, all I need to do is select it, click the 3 dots, select order, and then choose either bring forward or bring to front. The difference is bring forward is going to bring it 1 layer forward. Bring to front is going to bring it to the very top. Now, right now, there's only 1 layer we have going on, but if I had a whole bunch of things layered, I'd want to pay attention to whether I want this on the very top or just forward 1 layer. You'll notice that you have shortcuts here. Once you get used to those shortcuts, they are way easier to use throughout programs. Those shortcuts also apply to all of the Google apps. So when you're working with design in different Google apps, if you memorize those shortcuts, you can use them elsewhere. We're going to bring this to the front, and I want that fill to be white this time. That way it stands out further. Now I'm going to add my student name here. I'm noticing that it's picking up the last color that I had. So I do need to change that color, and I also don't want this to be a title. I want it to just be normal. I did spell student wrong, couldn't see it when it was white. I double click where my cursor is. Then I'm going to use that 4-way arrow to move it to the center. Now, the last thing I need to do to set this up is I need to add my text boxes. So I want to go back. I'm going to be interviewing Han Solo, and I want to describe my classmate. What do they look like? Now, I could use the text box here, but I can also use the sticky note tool. I notice that Han Solo has brown hair, brown eyes. He's wearing a white shirt with black vest, makes you smile, and whatever else I want to describe about my classmate and the way that they look. I do have options for changing the color of the sticky note up here, everything from your neons to just a plain white. Now, the big thing to note about sticky notes is when you hit save, the sticky note automatically appears on your Jamboard. One challenge a lot of students have is they don't realize this and they keep clicking save, and all of a sudden they have 30 different notes saying exactly the same thing. So helping your students realize they only need to click save once and then hit cancel to get out of the sticky notes will give them what they need. They can make the sticky note bigger or smaller. And again, they have those options for edit, duplicate, delete, and order. I've got this there and I'm ready to add an image. So I'm going to head over to the Add Image tool. And notice I have a whole bunch of different ways that I can add an image. I can upload from my computer. I can add based on a URL of an image. I can even take pictures right from my webcam, which quite honestly would be great for this activity or lesson frame if I were doing this with students. I can Google image search in my Google Drive, and search in my Google Photos. Now, in this particular example, I'm going to Google image search because I don't happen to have Han Solo with me today in class. So I'm going to search for Han Solo, and I'm going to put action figure because I also happen to know there's not a great collection of actual pictures of Han Solo in the free Google image search. So it looks like I found an action figure of him with Luke. I can either double click on this or click and select insert. If you're making this Jamboard with me now, I would take a moment and play around with the different ways that you can insert images to fully explore that before introducing to students. Now, let's say I have this and I like it here. I like it bigger, but I want this white rectangle to be on top. So I have two options. I can click on the right rectangle and bring that to the front, or I can click here and select order, and I'm going to send it backward. Send it backward again. Still not going where I want. So I'm going to cheat and go the other direction. Oh, now I lost the Han Solo box, so that didn't really work for me either. There we go. Now I have what I like. Now, heading over to the 4 things they like and the 4 things they do not like, I can again use the text box feature, or now I can use the sticky notes now that I know how to use those. We're going to head down to the draw a picture of their dream pet based on their description. So Han Solo's describing his dream pet, and what better tool to draw than using the pen tool? The pen tool gives you 4 different types of tools to draw with. You have a pen, a marker, which is kind of like just a thicker pen. You have the highlighter, which is going to be translucent, and then the brush tool, which is also translucent. So keep that in mind when you're drawing. You only have 6 colors to work with, but quite frankly, it's great for students because fewer options mean that they're not so troubled about making a choice about what colors to use. I do want to move some things around, and that arrow tool or that select tool can help me move things further around. And when I'm explaining or sharing this with other people, if I want to draw attention, I have a laser where I can draw, but it's almost like invisible ink. This can be a lot of fun with students. It quickly disappears, but it allows you to draw attention to something when you're teaching with Jamboard. I can see that I now have my 2 frames in Jamboard, and I've played with all of the tools that Jamboard has available. Now, there's advantages and disadvantages for setting up everything in Jamboard. One thing that can be a challenge is the fact that all of these features in Jamboard can easily be deleted and moved around by students. So in future videos, we're going to talk a lot more about design and how you can create Jamboards purposely, making them so that you don't run into some of these challenges with students. If you have any questions, please reach out, watch the rest of the videos, do some learning, play around. What you're going to find is you're going to get much better at design if you just take time and play.